let's talk home title fraud. Home title fraud is one of the fastest growing white-collar crimes in the United States. What is home title fraud? So home title fraud is when a fraudster or a criminal forges a document conveying the property into their name without your knowledge. The way that we normally see that is they'll quitclaim the property into their name and then they'll record it in public records. So how does that information become public records? Well, in the state of Florida, we have the Public Records Recording Act. So essentially what happens is that the law says and tells these agencies, hey, you have to record certain information that is considered to be public record. Under Florida Statute 119, it gives the agencies, the states, and any localities the requirement. They are required by law to record this information. Now, they record the information as long as it's properly executed. They don't necessarily verify the information because that's not the standard of practice that's put on them. So now that your information is public record, the fraudster goes around looking at properties. They look at properties based on ownership interest, how long you've owned the property, if you have a mortgage, the age of the mortgage on that property, to see if there's equity in the property. And now if you don't have any mortgage, even better. Now there's two ways this fraud typically happens. One, they either deed the property to themselves and then sell it to an unknowing investor. They'll tell the investor, look, I have to liquidate this property. Do you want to buy it subject to the mortgage? That way we don't have to pay all of these documents and I'll just give you a deed in your name. And the investor thinks, wow, this is a great deal, and will purchase the property without doing all of the research that they need to do because it's a good deal. Give the fraudster the information and the money that they want, and then at that end, they'll have this deed. So the investor feels like they own the property. The second way that this is also done is that the fraudster will not always change the deed on the property. They'll get your information, and then sometimes they do enough research and they find out how to steal your identity. They'll take that information and then they'll take a mortgage out on your property. And then they'll go ahead and have all the identification that is needed from a lender and provide it to them. The lender will then verify that information. There's a bank account set up by this fraudster in your name. The money gets put into this account. The fraudster closes the account, takes all the money, and never makes a payment on the new mortgage. And lo and behold, this is mortgage fraud, first of all. And secondly, once that mortgage gets defaulted, you'll have a foreclosure action pending, and the homeowner doesn't find out about it until they get hit with foreclosure documents. Now, for those of you who don't know, I am a Florida real estate attorney, and I am going to give you 4 pointers on how to avoid becoming a victim of title fraud. Number 1, check public records. Your deed is recorded in public records. You will go to the county where your property is located, you go to their website for that county, and look up either the property address or the homeowner's name. You'll search. Once that populates, you will be able to find out who is the owner of interest in that property because it will become public record. So that will be reflected in the county records. So it'll be on the top left-hand corner, it'll say the owner, and it'll have the name and address of the owner. Now, public records is a great source. You can also look at the tax appraiser's office because the tax appraisers tells you also what happened on that property, the sales, the taxes, if they've been paid, and things of that nature. So that's all great information. 2, make sure you're monitoring all of the communications you're receiving from a financial institution, either one that you currently bank with or one that you haven't banked with, but they still have your information. You would either get it in an email, a text, or even in writing. So typically when it comes to any type of things to deal with your credit, you'll get something in the mail that talks about the pulling of your credit and what it means and all your legal rights associated with that. But if you get one of these notifications and you know you haven't tried to pull any type of loan or line of credit or a new type of credit, then I would always recommend contacting this institution immediately to find out what's going on. 3, always always monitor your credit report. You should be doing this regardless if you're pulling credit or getting a line of credit or own property or not. We should always be very aware of what's happening on our credit. A credit report will tell your credit history. It will tell what kinds of credit you have, the types of lines of credit, when they were established, how long you've been paying them, and any other information, if they're delinquent or on time, or just the whole history of these credit lines. It will also tell you if there's any public records, meaning if somebody's suing you, that will reflect on the credit report. And it will also reflect if anybody has made any inquiries on your credit. And this is good information to know, because if somebody is pulling your credit and you haven't authorized them, then you need to go and investigate that. And typically on your credit report, it will tell you who is trying to do those investigations and who's trying to pull that line of credit, and you can contact them if it's not something you have done. 4, I would always recommend that you have some type of alert system. Now, in certain counties in the state of Florida, we do have an alert system. Orange County, Osceola County, Volusia County, Polk County. These counties have an alert system. So you would go to the public records, the property public records, and you would sign up for a account alert. And so it would just go through this process, and they ask you if you authorize them to do it. They'll ask you for your name, and then you'll go ahead and put that, and you get a confirmation email that says, now you're on alert. So if some conveyance happens and it has your name, then they will send you an email. Now you should verify if that is you who they're talking about, because some people have very similar names and you'll get the same notification. So be cautious of that. But again, public records is a good source. If you don't have that in your county and it's not available to you, then I would recommend getting a LifeLock. There's a lot of companies out there now that will go ahead and monitor public records when it comes to conveying your property. So these things are important to have, and it's always a good way to save you from being an actual victim of this crime. So to wrap this all up, what is the best way to avoid being a victim? Always, always, always keep your information private. Always make sure that you monitor your credit and your public records. These are ways that you can find out immediately if somebody is accessing your information, and that will help you avoid or stop a fraudster in their tracks.